So the odd drop might hit that camera.
I ran underneath some big trees.
Buddy of mine, logger, contractor, he keeps tabs on a couple fields up the road, not too far from the house, where we videoed that group of bachelor Roosevelt bull elk last year, and 4 of them are back. One great big one with a snapped off antler, and I got some wicked video of them. I used the DSLR camera, and I used the Sony Handycam too. So I guess I'll probably show some of that content while I'm sharing today. What else? Quick note. Just gonna point something out, a little odd. Not too long ago, I was online. Came across some clip, just by random. Came across a clip, and there's an independent journalist, young guy, probably in his mid, I don't know, 30 something, and he was interviewing people, asking them. He wasn't a supporter of any political group. I forget what the word is. He's classified as neutral, I guess. And he's asking people for their honest opinions on both sides of the coin. So he came up to this one couple, looked like they're in their 50s, and he wanted to ask them what their stance was on the current U.S. government at the time. And they were both saying how they absolutely supported the president today. And he's like, okay, that's cool. What do you think about this? I said, yep, for sure, he's doing a great job. And what about this? Yep, And then he offered up on the other side of the coin some of the darker aspects of what the current political group may be doing. And both of them went like this. Oh, and the man grabbed his wife by the back and said, no, we don't talk to you. We're not talking to you. And off they went. They stormed off, they emotionally blew a gasket and stormed away. Isn't that weak? Isn't that weird, hey? How today, I don't know why or who started it, but we are not, a lot of people, especially, I think there's a lot of university students too, are being somewhat steered maybe, or programmed maybe in a way to absolutely shut down if they come across anyone that may possibly disagree with them on any topic, instead of just hashing it out and talking about it. Isn't it weird how many people snap? they snap and emotionally blow a gasket. I don't get it. I wonder who started that, because it seems to be getting popular. It's a little bit alarming, right? Like, I've been following myself. I've made it clear earlier. I follow people non-stop who I find to be legit and share first-hand knowledge non-stop, and I follow them a lot. I follow probably 6 or 7 different outlets, and I take from it what I will, or I leave what I feel I should leave. And I come up and I feel very confident in a lot of the knowledge I've gathered. So, in saying that, I made a post about the president of Ukraine receiving literally billions of our dollars while promoting war instead of peace talks, and ultimately creating many more deaths, whose ever fault it is. But the fact of the matter is, they're avoiding peace and promoting war, and this guy's been put up for the Nobel Peace Prize. And at the same time, he's demanding, just the other day, he was demanding nuclear strikes. What? I don't give a shit who you are. So my stance on that would be, I don't care who you are. I'm living on this beautiful place right now, and somebody who's standing on the same ground I am, just a ways away, is demanding nuclear bombs be detonated to kill people. What? Give me my money back, you little weasel. And that's my stance on that. I do not give a shit what's going on, who's to blame, who's doing this, who's doing that. My number one concern would and should be right now is if anybody in the planet is promoting and demanding the use of nuclear weapons to kill people on my planet today, that's the son of a bitch. Sorry, just is. But when I made that post, it's amazing. I think 100 and some odd people blew a gasket and unsubscribed from the channel, left. They'll be replaced within 24 hours, but still, it's amazing to see how many people there are who will blow a gasket and run at the second they see somebody might have a different opinion than them, instead of going, oh, interesting. I never looked at it that way. Maybe I'll look at it this way and have a peek for myself and see how I feel about it. Instead they go. And run. Weak. Weak. I guess, sometimes I always say, the emotionally weak people, just get the hell out of here. But I wonder if that's a wrong approach. I wonder if I'm actually supposed to be possibly offering up some patience and acceptance for those people to hopefully get them to kick their own independent thinking in gear and be able to calm down, smell the roses, and learn how to discuss. Right? There you go. That's my little blast this morning. It's not even fully light out yet. And I'm not far from the Upper Stamp River, so saw quite a well-used game tail right there a second ago. Would be surprised if some bears come walking by at all. There's fish in the river down there. Now, let's get some recent emails shared. Where am I going to start? There's so many. Alright, what's this one? This is titled True Bigfoot Encounter. Alright, that's what we're after. Hi Steve, hope you're having a good day. My name is Jerry. I live in a town called Forest Grove, upper west corner of Oregon. 10 years ago here in Oregon, just in the outskirts southeast of town on a sunny warm morning in June, me and my girlfriend at the time was out visiting our friends that lived on a farm. We had dinner and, forgot the D, stayed the night before there with them. So the next morning that we were preparing to leave, my girlfriend and all the ands are spelled A-N without the D, so I'm going to screw up a few times. My girlfriend and my buddy's girlfriend wanted to go on the back 40 and pick some blackberries. They asked us to go along, and before I could say no, my buddy said, "Go on, Jerry, and pick some berries with the girls. I'm not feeling well." I was like, "Thanks, man." All I wanted to do was go home that morning. Anyway, I ended up going with the girls and was helping them pick up the berries. I really didn't want to, but I did because my girlfriend really wanted to. Plus, I knew she would make a pie or something good later on. I got bored picking berries and hearing them talk about girl stuff real quick. So I tell my girlfriend, "Hey, I'm going to go down to the river and see the riverbank." For a while, my buddy has been clearing out brush and blackberry briars for fishing. On the way down the road toward the river, I noticed off to the right a partial cleared opening he made to dump leaves and brush. Holy shit. When you leave out the D on the word "and," it really screws up reading out loud. Every single word "and" is spelled without a D. This was on a small hill with Douglas firs ranging from 40 to 50 feet high and scrub brush for about 100 yards by a quarter-mile long strip of land. And off to the left of the road was partial trees that tapered off, and then it opened up to a wheat field. That was what he called the back 40. So, when I was looking in the opening that he cut out, I could see all the way to the top of the hill. And that morning, while the sun was still on the way up, it was shining partially in the opening he cut. While I was standing there, not long, maybe 20 seconds, I see these leaves fall off to the right of the opening, fall, and heard something breaking limbs, but not big ones. I thought it was a squirrel that I spooked, and I wished it was, but it wasn't. That's when I see a big, hairy, brownish, red-colored leg, then an arm and hand of this massive beast. As he took 5 steps across the opening that my buddy cut out and posted up behind the cover of the trees on the other side of the opening. Steve, I don't know how big an animal or Bigfoot has to be for a person to feel each step resonate through the ground at 25 yards away, but I sure the hell did, each step he took. I was frozen with fear and surprise at the same time. I stood there for what seemed like 10 seconds after he stopped and thought to myself, they are real. Then I said out loud, "Shit!" Then ran up this incline toward the place my girlfriend and buddy's friend were picking the berries. I made it up that incline in 3 steps, man. Normally takes about 7. That's how much adrenaline and fear I had pumping. I ran all the way back about 150 yards to the girls yelling, "We need to get the hell out of here now." My girlfriend asked me why. I said they're real. The Bigfoots are real. I just seen one. Let's go now. But she's a curious woman. And she told me one time she's seen one shot that friends of hers shot thinking it was a bear. I laughed at her at the time and said, yeah, whatever. She told me she wasn't lying to me. Then, as all this is happening to me that morning, I know they are real and will never doubt again. Anyway, while I'm all nervous and a bit scared looking around to see if it was coming, she says, where was it? I said, down the hill on the road a ways, and repeated, we need to go now. She decided to start walking toward the spot to see. I told her she was being foolish, and if it grabs you, there's nothing I can do to help you. I'll run the other way like a scared bitch. Because this thing was taller than the opening my friend cut out. I know that it was taller than 8.5 feet, because we measured that opening later. And I couldn't see its head, just its legs and shoulders as across the opening. So she gets down by the spot where me and my friend watched from a distance. We saw her stop, then she walked a bit more, then froze for a second, turned around yelling, go, go, go. My buddy's girl took off. I waited for my girl to get by me, then we ran together. That was the scariest and coolest thing that's ever happened to me. I'm just glad that it didn't growl or yell. I probably would have shit myself. Oh, and about a week later we went down there and found tracks. I took a picture of them. I didn't find them, and I'll send you copies to show people. Thanks, Steve, for taking the time to read this. You and your family live in a beautiful place. Take care, man, and be safe. You take care and be safe too, man. Thanks for sharing. And don't get all insecure about me commenting about leaving out the D. It's no big deal. I just got to explain to the people why I'm reading like a dumbass sometimes. But anyways, the Stamp River's down here, and what many people have wrote into me and said, or commented as well, and said, hey, you want a Sasquatch experience, just walk the Stamp River. So, you catch me looking over my shoulder a little bit. It's not just because of that, but more because I know there should be a shit pile of bears around here, and I'm not familiar with the game trails right here and where they may or may not be regularly crossing through. So, usually I am familiar with where I'm standing and where I should or shouldn't have my back to a trail. And especially when you got all the water falling out of the trees, it makes it louder in the brush down where their heads are, right? So they might not possibly hear me clearly and come bumping into me by accident, or a cat or whatever. So, it's first light, all the game's still active. So I do the odd look around, just out of habit, right? Yeah. How long's this one? By the way, I went and visited our dear friend yesterday in the hospital for as long as we could for the visiting hours. She's doing better. Hopefully going to be home in a couple days, but prayers for April would be very, very much appreciated. Concerned about her. And pray for her heart to become stronger, alright? If you can. Bigfoot in Vietnam, question mark. Hi Steve, love your channel. I've been binging on your sites for a couple years now, and your shares have become my nightly bedtime stories as my wife and kids chuckle to themselves. Haha. My wife knows a preacher in Thailand who's apparently had several encounters with Bigfoot, and he graciously emailed them to me. How cool is that? Here they are, only slightly edited. We have Native American in our family, plus other family members in my family married with Native Americans. So Sasquatch or Bigfoot is not that big of a deal to us. It's just another one of God's creatures. They have fossils of it. And those that believe in the theory of evolution, which is just a theory, believe that this creature died many years ago. So, a living Sasquatch really throws a monkey wrench into their theory. Also, for a side note, as I am half Vietnamese, in Vietnam this creature is called the, well, here we go, Noi Rung. The Noi Rung. I can't pronounce an N and then a G. U-O-I. And then R-U-N-G. Goi? Rung? Gnoi Rung. Anyway. Back during the Vietnamese/American War, or the Second Indochina War, a U.S. CIA agent flew the carcass of a, let's just call it Sasquatch, all right? I can't pronounce that word, so I'm going to use the word Sasquatch. Flew the carcass of a Vietnamese Sasquatch to the U.S. for a state fair, but he almost got into very big trouble for doing so, so he had it buried. Back in the 2010s, from 2010 to 13, I was ministering to Vietnamese Mennonite refugees in Thailand. They're the last of Vietnam's underground church, and had to flee the country to Thailand during government crackdowns at that time, so they could go to a third country. Anyway, during one of our conversations, we talked about the Vietnamese Sasquatch. They had all seen it, not in the jungles, but in a zoo in Ho Chi Minh City, or Saigon. What? When I had them describe what they saw, they said it stood upright and was taller than the door, which put it at least 7 feet. They were laughing at me for thinking that it was special. For to them, it was just another creature of the zoo. I was actually thinking about going to that zoo back then with a video camera to video it. But I was too busy preaching the gospel and did not get around to it. Plus, I may have already died by that time. And I didn't want to take the chance on wasting so much money to travel there. That's crazy. I haven't heard of that ever. I'm sure it wouldn't take too much for anyone to do some due diligence to dig up some more info on that, right? In Virginia, back in the 80s, my granddad's twin brother built a cabin in the mountains. We would often go to this cabin on the weekends. My granddad's twin brother was married to a Native American. Her dad's nickname was Red, as they were not so politically correct back then. Red could take you into the woods, where he claimed battles took place between different tribes, and recover arrowheads. And in the area of that cabin lived what they called a bear. I never saw it up close or in detail, but whenever you smelled a certain smell, they would tell us to get in the cabin. At different times, the bear would shake large trees very violently, which also meant to go indoors. My cousins and I found Bigfoot tracks, and they told us that they were bear tracks. And at different times, things like large rocks would be thrown at us from the woods. Part of the tradition of going to the cabin was to go for a long walk, and a place that we would walk to was an abandoned house in the mountains. Whoever left that house left in a hurry, leaving their whole house full of all their things. Something may have chased them away. But back in 1990, in September 1990, I drove a car that was given to me by my mom that summer from Virginia to Texas to go to a Vietnamese aunt's house. Back then, my dad had just moved to Bangkok, Thailand, and asked me to live with him. Everyone in my family was against that except for this aunt. Though we were not related by blood, she said about that situation that summer that a boy needs his father. So I drove to her house in Texas to call my dad to pick me up. I had at first planned on driving to California, sell that car, and fly to Thailand on my own, not knowing about passports and visas back then. But I stopped off in Texas at this aunt's house, who let me stay with her family until my dad come and pick me up. I left in late morning, right before noon, so late that night, I was in Georgia, where it's all swampy land near the border with Florida. The interstate was empty in September. Normally, during the summers, as I have traveled that route since I can remember with my mom and her family, it is full of travelers and truck drivers. However, in September, it is an empty interstate. Back then, the speed limit was 65 miles per hour, so I had set the cruise control in the 70s mile per hour. And as it was an empty interstate, I had on my high beams, and I came upon a creature that was covered in red hair, sitting in the middle of the interstate, blinded by my headlights. It was squatting down, but up on its front arms. But what I saw clearly was its face. As its eyes were blinking in my headlights, I was in the right-hand lane, so I had to swerve into the left-hand lane, which almost made me lose control of the car. The tires were screeching. I pulled over in the next rest area, for back in the summer, when I traveled with my mom and her family, we would meet travelers in the rest area, and you could make small talk about the roads, especially with the truck drivers. But it was empty. I ended up sleeping in my car that night in that rest area. I was hoping to talk to somebody else that saw what I saw in the middle of the road, but once again, it was empty in September. That was the first time I saw a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot, up close and in detail. It looked like an orangutan. It was covered in red hair, squatted down, and I saw its eyes, his face and eyes very clear. Had I been going the speed limit, I would have seen it much closer and for a longer amount of time. But being that I was traveling in the 70s mile per hour, I almost lost control of that car. I remember thinking in that rest area, if I had lost control of that car, flipped and died, as it had a convertible top, no one would have known what had happened to me. Plus, I've always thought about what would have happened if I hit that thing, killed it, and totaled the car. Who knows what they would have done to me. Now, a few things to take away from this. First, it was squatted down. This is the secret to its stealth, in that it travels almost like a dog close to the ground. Everyone looking for it is looking up, as it is very tall, but it squats down and travels that way, like a dog or even like a frog. Plus, it is in areas that are not inhabited. Therefore, it is hard to track or find. But as the Vietnamese have or had at one time, one of them in a zoo. The secret to catching them is booby traps close to the ground. And being that it is easily blinded by my headlights, and that means its eyes are nocturnal, making it impossible to find in the dark, as it can see us when we cannot see it. But it is sensitive to high-powered lights. If I were to track one with that one experience that I have, I would carry a very high-powered flashlight on me to blind it. Just like humans, its eyes are its weakness. Cyril Gordon. Alright, man, thanks for that. That's really interesting. And that wouldn't take too much for somebody to follow up digging into that one, right? See if that zoo has any kind of history online somewhere, or somebody may know somebody used to live there and might find out some history on it, and maybe somebody has some photographs of what the hell things were kept in that cage. Wouldn't that be crazy? I haven't heard of that ever. But there's enough people on here now, I bet somebody has. I'll bet. Thanks for sending that in, man. Crazy. Alright, how long is this one? This one's not too long. I'll go maybe one or two more, and then I gotta get going. I got too much stuff to do. Gotta get that, got my elk meat picked up. It's ready to be picked up. Sausages, and I gotta get all those chickens vacuum sealed today. 1970s Shasta Lake houseboat. Was it a Bigfoot? That's the title. Hi, Steve. I've never been what you call an outdoorsy kind of gal, but over the years I've camped and fished many times, as well as reluctant camping and outdoor activities. Haha. In the mid-70s, I was a mere 18 years old. To be young again. My soon-to-be hubby and I rented a big houseboat on Shasta Lake for a few nights, days and nights. We were given a lake map and instructed to count the waves and inlets so we knew where we were. Count the coves and the inlets so we knew where we were at all times. At night, we had to pull up to the side of the mountain and tie off. We were told never to free flow at night because we wouldn't know where you wouldn't know where you were in the morning. I honestly don't remember what time of year it was. For some reason, I do remember it was off season, which is why we got the heck of a deal on the rental. We're definitely not extravagant in our younger years, both working for the grocery industry. So that's not something we would have done unless we got a hell of a deal. The mountain's-based shoreline was very narrow at this time of year. When evening started to fall, we pulled to the side of the mountain. The shoreline was probably 18 to 24 inches at the base of the mountain. The mountainside was pretty heavily vegetated, went straight up. The only way a human could get to this shoreline was by boat. No way a person could scale that steep hillside. This will be important. The soft shoreline was just deep enough to nose in the houseboat, jump off, and secure the houseboat for the night. Well, my future husband was the one doing the honors of tying the houseboat off. I put the boat in low, idle, forward gear as he jumped onto the narrow shoreline. Suddenly, he yelled to me, "Hey, there's big footprints out here." Of course I went to look, and sure enough, there was huge, barefoot footprints in the sandy, narrow shore. I remember I didn't even think twice what a Bigfoot was, or if I believed in Bigfoot. I don't know how first heard a Bigfoot, but it didn't scare me, and I didn't think about seeing the prints until first night sleeping woke some kind of commotion going on the upper deck at the houseboat. Neither of us wanted to look to see what it was. Thankfully, it was off season and not warm enough to sleep on the top deck outside because I couldn't even imagine. Neither of us wanted to check to see what the heck was going on. We just made sure that the internal doors were locked Yeah, like that would keep a Bigfoot out, right? I say sarcastically. In the morning, there were things tossed about the top deck. I would be anxious to see if anybody else had any Lake Shasta experiences on a houseboat. On a side note, this email would have been a lot longer, but I didn't know if I should cloud the Bigfoot cryptid stories with paranormal. I do have some non-Bigfoot things that happened to me and my sister when I was 3-ish. She was 2-ish years old, and once I was in 5th grade. All more paranormal. Anyway, thank you so much for what you do. I admire you in so many ways, and I have not said that to many people in my life. Thanks for all you do. All my best. Aya? Can't tell if that's got to be Elia. Lya. Sorry if I screwed up your name. I screw up a lot of pronunciations, right? But anyway, I appreciate your time you just took out to share with everybody through me. Time's valuable, and I'd say somebody's probably going to email in about Mount Shasta experiences for sure, right? I would guess. But anyway, yeah. I think there's a lot of people that wouldn't go look outside if they were tied up with a remote lake on a houseboat and something was trashing the shit out of the top of it after seeing huge barefoot prints. Yeah. And thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. Alright. There's one more short one, then I gotta get going. This is titled, Help Share Some of the Puzzle. Dear Steve, first part for you only. Do as you wish with it. Alright. I have a kindred spirit with animals. Example, my neighbor had taken in an abused cat. It wouldn't come near her. I was talking with her and she asked me in. Sat down, the cat came over and was walking around me and rubbing up against my legs. As I sat in front and looked, it sat in front and looked up at me. I said, okay, come up. And it jumped on my lap and curled up. I started getting it, and I started petting it, and it started purring. There's raindrops on my screen, you guys. The neighbor was astonished. She said she couldn't get that close in 4 months of trying. Well, my point, I'm an avid hiker. Many animals approach me without fear. They wander into my camp and visit me. Now, as you know, we are not at the top of the food chain. A polar bear will stalk you because you're prey. They can detect your presence from many miles off. Well, the forest people have the same skill. They know when you entered their forest, so we need to give them due respect. I always announce myself and my intentions. It's like knocking on the front door and asking to come in, like a friendly neighbor would. Yes, they mind speak. I was hiking the Olympic National Park. I was on the High Divide, headed towards Ho Lake, H-O-H, Ho Lake. I was winding down to cross the ridge of the Ho Basin. All of a sudden, a voice in my head said, wait. I slowed down a bit, then I said, wait. I said, what? It said, wait. Then it said, proceed with caution. As I rounded the outcropping of rock, there in the middle of the basin ridge was a black bear. I froze and lifted my pack to be as a bug as possible. Oh, probably meant big as possible. It squinted at me and sniffed, then looked at the basin wall and started climbing down. I walked out onto the ridge where the bear had just been, took off my pack, sat down and watched as it descended. I believe the forest person saved me. I'm now in my early 70s and I can only glam camp. Hope to hear back, Steve. Thank you for the round table. Namaste, bear. All right. Another mind speak. Another person get a message in their head. It's funny because bears don't normally prey on us, especially when we bump into them. They normally shit themselves and run. Scared. Anyway, I'm gonna get ripping, you guys. I got a lot to do. My time's ticking. I gotta be up north for November. It's snowing up there now. It's gonna be, and I can't wait to get back out there. But anyway, if I could possibly offer up something for anybody to chew on that might need to chew on it would be to try to pull it in, man. If you start getting emotional when somebody has something to say that you possibly don't agree with, get your head out of your ass and talk to them like they're possibly your brother who just might have to fight alongside you one day, and speak to them with respect, and know that if you automatically react by blowing a gasket, you're weak between the ears. So toughen up, get your shit together, all right? This community and all communities need everybody to be smart and strong, not weak and emotional, right? And closed-minded. Discuss things like a normal frickin' person would with your neighbor, with strangers, all right? Okay? It's embarrassing. It's so cringe. It makes me absolutely cringe when I see people being so weak between the ears like that. Oh my God, he said something I just can't agree with. We've got to shut him up somehow. I have to get away from this person. Said no rational thinking mind ever. Right? This is a sign that you need some frickin' serious counseling. But anyway, closing that note, and can't wait to go home and see the quality of the video I just took of those bulls. The biggest one looked like he snapped his antler off fighting. And I think there's probably should be around 8 bulls missing. They should be there, but I guess they're probably still rutting it up with the cows and haven't thrown in the towel and given it up for the rest of the year yet. So we'll see what comes. I think tomorrow I'm probably going to get up at 5 in the morning and head out west into the big mountains and see if I can't find those big elk, and check my trail cameras maybe tomorrow morning. And I will share that too, either on this channel or the How to Hunt channel, or, well, I won't put any new stuff on the Roundtable and Knowledge by HTH backup channel, because that's just kind of sitting there patiently waiting for us in case we need to use it for new content for when I get spanked on this channel again. Or saying whatever I want to say. I'm trying to talk about some topics that these controlling evil bastards don't want us to have the freedom to talk about. How brutal is that, right? Anyway, share my story at howtohunt.com. Get that knowledge out to the people. Get it off your chest. Quit packing that shit around. I'll be back shortly.